Order in my studio.
Yeah.
Woo! Woo!
What did I do to deserve this whatever it is?
We love you, Johnny!
You're a handsome devil.
Yeah, thank you. I am a devil, but... Well, listen, my next guest up finally got him on the show. It's great, it's great. He's known worldwide for his song, Little Star. He's the original member of the doo-wop group, The Elegance. Let's give him a late night welcome, feeling right at home, because this is his home, Vito Picone.
Vito!
Yeah.
Vito!
Vito, what's up, pal? It's about time, right?
Oh,
How long do we know each other? A while. Long enough.
65 years.
Something like that. I'm not that old. We actually formally met back in the day when you were music director of that film that was getting filmed in the neighborhood from a friend of ours.
Right.
And you took my music and put it in the movie.
soundtrack, right.
But I was always a fan of yours. My dad and my mom used to listen to the Elegance. I mean, I grew up with the 50s.
Oh.
And then when I volunteered, I used to volunteer for your show, and I used to watch Vito because I always wanted to do what he did. And then it took me a long time, and then that's it. We're here.
Well, you got it now.
We're doing what we got to
You're
do,
doing
right?
it, you're doing it right. You're doing it.
Now, Vito, you were born and raised in Staten Island.
I'm a native. I'm born and raised in South Beach.
Yeah. Why don't you give everybody who don't know my following and my audience and the younger generation, just give a little family background from your roots on Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
You were here, a lot of changes.
Yeah, we saw it from the early 50s on. I was born in the 40s,
Okay.
so I'm not ashamed of my age. I just turned 75 in March.
Wow, thank you.
And,
Happy birthday!
yeah, thank you. I can't blow out the candles. I get emphysema. But the fun part is that Little Star's going to be 60 years next year,
It's amazing.
and we're already starting 2017. Our schedule is busier than it's been in the last 10 years already.
God
so
bless
far.
you. I mean,
Yeah.
living the dream.
Leaving on a double cruise in another week.
Yeah.
Going out. We started. Just answering your question, we started in South Beach. Five Italian American kids. We hung out on a boardwalk in South Beach. Boardwalk was unique. Where if you talk to anybody from the 50s, they'll tell you they started on a street corner. We started on the boardwalk, and we had a unique situation because there were summer bungalows.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody came from different parts of the East Coast. They would come to South Beach for the summer. And we had Bobby Darin had a summer bungalow down there, his family, came from the Bronx. Johnny Maestro had a summer bungalow down there, came from the Lower East Side. And we got the opportunity to mingle with maybe sometimes around 200 kids on the boardwalk, as opposed to 24 or 30 kids on a street corner. But we started emulating the sounds of the early rock and roll groups, like the Teenagers.
Yeah.
And we started singing at the local dances. And from the dances, we won a contest. We went to the recording company to actually do the recording. We made a record in the early going. Our first manager was shot and killed on the Lower East Side.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What was his name?
Well, his real name was Danny Zgorbo, but his I guess his business name was Dan Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind-up was that we actually recorded and found ourselves with no manager, no record label, and we didn't know what to do. So we started knocking on doors, and we did some live auditions. We were lucky enough to get an audition with a label that we really wanted to go on to because some of our idols were on that particular record label. The record, when we recorded it, the owner of that company, which was an independent label, assumed that it was bigger than she could handle. And she sublet us to ABC Paramount.
That's great.
So I wound up going to ABC Paramount. Same day we signed with Ray Charles, signed with us that day. Paul Anka was with ABC Paramount. Steve Lawrence was with ABC Paramount.
Now you guys formed, and a year later you had a hit song, correct?
Yeah, well, yes.
Pretty much so, right?
Yeah, the Elegance as we know, or as were on that record, were a little over a year and a half old. But prior to that, I had a recording with another group from the beach that I had started, and that's the group that originally, became the Elegance from that point.
What were you, 18, 19? How
I
old
was
were you?
14. I was 14 years old when I made my first record. I was
Elegance.
Just started in New Hope High School. I was 14. We were 3 guys from the neighborhood, 3 trombone players from PS 39 in South Beach, and a young girl that we used as a lead singer. Her father owned Crescido's nightclub. Anybody that ever went in the
I heard
club,
of it. I never.
everybody, anybody from a certain age group would know Crescido's because everybody played Crescido's. And it was the club, one of the top clubs on the Eastern Seaboard. And his daughter was our lead singer. But that's it. And then the record came out. Within the first week that it was released, sold 80,000 copies in New York alone. And then it went on to do close to $1.5 million. We received our gold record.
And then
by
in
October.
the UK, it was it number 25 in the UK top charts over
UK
there,
was
right?
25. We pulled, I think, number 8 in Italy and also in France. I did it.
Now, where did the name The Elegance come from? Who came up with that?
Oh, there's a loaded question. Dick Clark, before he passed away, up until the day he passed away, that was like one of the funniest lines, you know, and he would always associate me with that particular line, always tease me about it. But we did American Bandstand. We did about 3 or 4 of them.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
been great.
And the first time out there, he asked the same question. Where did you get the name The Elegance? Where we got it from was I was on my way to rehearsal one day, and we were thinking of trying to find a new name, or a name. And I saw in a friend of mine, my friend Benny Cerullo, who was the head coach at Monsignor Farrell for 40 years. His father had a tavern right on the corner of my neighborhood called the Club Trio. And in the window was a sign that said Shenley, the Whiskey of Elegance. So, and spelled E-L-E-G-A-N-C-E. So when I got to rehearsal right around the corner, I said, guys, I got the perfect name. And the Elegance, we'll change it to T-S, you know, Elegance, and blah, blah, blah. So everybody liked it, and we kept it. So being it was live on American Bandstand, and Dr. Pepper was their sponsor, and teenage audience, and in the 50s, you couldn't even say whiskey, you know, and bingo, I opened my mouth, you know, and he said, where did you get the name The Elegance? I said, we got it from Shenley, the Whiskey of Elegance. And bam, and that was it.
Really?
Oh my God, he went crazy. So, you know, it became a running joke after a while, but it was rough, and they were not too happy with that.
The American Bandstand, it was a fluke because that was so big, and they offered that to Joe Franklin before Dick Clark, and they said, and Joe had that idea. He wanted to have people dancing to records. He goes, Joe, that would never work. It never worked. And then he talks about the story. A couple years later, Dick Clark starts American Bandstand, and it blew up through the roof.
There was somebody that had it before Dick Clark.
It was called American Bandstand?
And he wound up taking over the show. But it was I forgot the other guy's name that had it, and it was fairly successful. But when he took it, it just blew it up. Joe Franklin was an old friend. He was a funny guy.
Class. He sat right there where you're sitting.
Oh my God, he's a character.
Love Joe.
Go into his office.
100%, yeah.
You thought you couldn't breathe.
It's like an avalanche. If you bump into one thing, everything falls everywhere. Like, hey, don't touch it. I know where it is.
He knew where it was.
Everything.
His desk was piled this high with papers and books and you name it was in there.
He was a gentleman. It's a fast story. Then we'll get back with you. When he was on the show, then I used to go visit him. So I bought him an 8x10 when he was on the show. I made him sign it. He's eating chicken. It was all greasy. I go, Joe, you signed this? No, don't worry about it. I'll do it. Wait till he's done. He goes, no, I'm going to be busy. He wipes his hands with these wipies, and then he touches my 8x10. I'm anal with stuff like that. His fingerprints are all over the 8x10. And when he signed it, so like he gave it back to me. I was like, all right, Joe. And then he goes, you're a great talk show host. Then he forced out the word, and then he put another word. I go, who does this? Nobody. I rip up the pice of paper, you throw it, you do a new one. Well, he didn't even give a shit.
At least he wiped his hands with wipes. You said he used to do this. His shirt looked like he wiped his first dinner on it.
But I got his fingerprints on the picture. Now let me ask you this now for people who don't know, and I don't know. As time went on with the Elegance, you left the group, right?
Yeah.
What was that all about? Then you reformed back in the early 70s, and you reformed the group.
I had an accident, and I lost the sight in my left eye.
Okay.
I had a piece of steel that went through my eye and shattered the lens, and I've never been able to see out the left eye since.
Okay.
So that's why I'm glad you're on this side. But the thing was that I was laid up for quite a while.
I didn't know.
And I was at New York University Hospital. I was blindfolded for 6 weeks, and then I had to lay out for 6 months without doing anything strenuously. And the guys were like, they were looking to do something. The Beatles had come out, and you know, to try and survive during that era, they had to do something
Yeah, the
quick.
Beatles, yeah.
So, you know, they went ahead and recorded a couple of songs. And then when I came out of the hospital, of course, then they had broken up. And I just went out on my own. I must have did about 6 or 7 songs by myself. I worked with Don Costa with United Artists. I signed with United Artists for a while. And then, and then from there, I formed a band like the Rascals because there was no more work for doo-wop groups at all.
Yeah.
I had a group called Bo Jest and the Legions.
I remember that.
You know, and and I went out as Bo Jest and had our Legionnaire costumes, and the Rascals had their Lord Fauntleroy outfits on, and Paul Revere and the Raiders had theirs on. The whole thing was costumes at the time. I worked throughout the 60s with Bo Jest and the Legions. I kept pretty busy, you know, throughout that time. And in 1970, we were told that they were going to do a show at the Academy of Music. It was going to be a one-night rock and roll revival of doo-wop music, which was 10 years after the actual, you know, the time.
Yeah. Now listen, this is something that a piece of nostalgia, and it's great because a lot of people won't even know. Goodfellas, the movie. Everyone saw Goodfellas, right?
Yeah! Goodfellas!
You remember the scene with Frank Vincent when he says, "Go get your shine box"?
Yes.
Vito was Vito in that scene. He's in the scene with
Billy's Bodyguard.
Billy's bodyguard with Frank Vincent. How did that come about? How'd you land that role? Were you dabbling with acting, or what happened? Tell me the story.
Yeah, we did a movie called Joey, which was about a young kid who wanted to be he was a rock guitar player. His father was an old doo-wop singer. The kid was getting himself jammed up, and the father found that music was the thing that he could have in common with his son, and so on and so forth. The movie did absolutely nothing. It was more like a Z movie than a B movie, you know. But Martin Scorsese was watching that movie like 3 o'clock in the morning or something one night, and he has people contact us the next day. And we went down and I read for the part. I actually read for he gave me a bigger part than that, but I had a beard at the time. And I had the beard for almost 15 years. And they said, you know, he said, you got the part, but you got to take the beard off. And wise guys don't have, you know, facial hair or anything. I said, I don't want to take the beard
You told him that?
Yeah, I wasn't an actor.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be an actor, you know. So he says, well, I can't do this. I said, well, I appreciate it. And I walked out. And the line of people, the people that were sitting.
And nobody does that, Martin
No,
Scorsese. That's funny.
You know, it was
but
funny. I mean, there were people in that waiting to go in for other auditions. I mean, there were 3 guys I know that are in jail now. Another 4 that never made it. They're all dead.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, there were some legitimate characters, you know, reading for those parts. But they contacted me the next day. You know, Mr. Scorsese's got another part for you, and he gave me this other part. But they cut out 2 or 3 scenes over the course of the.
that were extra while you were filming?
They made sense to me that they were going to be cut, and I knew they were going to be cut. You know, he even asked me, he said, we got to cut this scene. I said, I know you do. He said, why? I said, because the one scene was when they're killing Billy Bats.
Okay.
I was supposed to be sitting at a table with the girl that I walked in with. I'm supposed to get up like I'm going to protect my boss.
Yeah.
You know? And De Niro turns around and says, sit down, you didn't see nothing. Now, in the movie, Billy Bats is a captain in the Gambino family. I'm part of his crew. Do I sit down if a guy from the Lucchese family tells me to sit down while you're killing my boss?
No.
I got to get killed too. You know, so he said to me, and killing you is going to cost another $20,000. So we're cutting that scene out. I said, all right, fine. And another scene was I had to go to the jukebox. I was playing some music, and he said I was supposed to play Enzo Stuardi on the jukebox. And I said to him, he's going to cut that. I said, well, I understand that too. He says, why? I said, I've been in 1,000 Wise Guy joints. Nobody has Enzo Stuardi on the jukebox.
Yeah.
I would be playing Jimmy Roselli, you know, if I went to the jukebox. You know, so he said, yeah, we're going to cut that out too. So I actually talked myself out of 2 spots.
You go figure, because that movie blew up so big. It's cool. It's funny to hear that they were cutting like little money, like 20,000. I mean, it's a lot of money for some of us in our pocket. But when you're doing a big film, 20,000.
Yeah, they thought
20,000.
20,000 here, 20,000 there. It's a big difference.
Yeah, it's up.
He had he was very good to work for. I mean, I enjoyed that one scene I did. Took 13 hours.
Really?
That was enough to make me a believer.
Yeah, but that was classic.
Oh,
it was so perfectly done.
But who knew it at the time? You know, I mean, there were things in there. Joe Pesci broke those glasses. That glass against the bar, that wasn't supposed to happen. And every time he broke a glass, they had to sweep it up. We had to wait till they cleaned it all up and everything. And if I got a couple of seconds, I'll tell you something else. It's just with that movie, We were in trailers out on the outside waiting to be called. And I shared my trailer with Frankie Vincent.
Okay.
And Joe Pesci was in another one with, I forgot who he was with, and then De Niro was in the other. And you had to cross the street to get to this bar in Queens. It was done in Maspeth, Queens. And it had spotlights on, floodlights on, and wooden horses, barricades. And tons of people standing out there. And they call in the first one, send De Niro in, so they go get De Niro. He walks across the street, crowd goes crazy, screaming, hollering and everything. So, okay, send Joe Pesci in. Joe Pesci goes across the street, everybody's going bananas. Then I send Vito in. That was the longest walk of my life. There wasn't one person clapping. All I heard was, who's that? Who's that?
Vito does a show down here, Let the Good Times Roll. What are you on, your 25th year, 27th year?
The 26th year coming up.
26 years, imagine that. He films on the Monday before we film, so they canceled this week because of the weather, but he films it the last Monday, we film it the last Thursday, so, and that's pretty much it, right, buddy?
Oh, hey.
We're gonna do it to whatever.
That's all.
Hopefully I can get to a network someday and have you back on.
Hey, I'll be pulling for you. I'm pulling for you.
Listen, I might be crazy, but listen, this is America. If Donald Trump could be president, why can't I get a real job doing this one day?
President Trump!
Well, everybody, Vito Picone.
Vito!
Yeah.